entertaining than Parks and Rec on TV. So tonight we're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance by the U.S. flag led by me. We will then go to the Texas Pledge led by Parks and Recreations Director James Grant. We will then have the invocation led by Councilmember Daniel Booker. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
God, we thank you for today. We thank you for fellowship, time together, deliberation of city business in front of these people here with us. And we just pray, again, we thank you for weather, rain, a little bit of heat. We also pray that these upcoming storms, we pray for calm and peace and safety of our first responders and citizens. And we just pray that you lead, guide us, and direct us tonight in our deliberations and all that we do here, and let it be glorifying and to your will. God, we love you. We thank you for your son on the cross, and it's his name pray.
Amen. Amen. All right, we will call the meeting to order at 5:31 p.m. The first item after the call to order is public comments. If anyone wishes to address the council on any item that's not on the agenda and something that is under our authority to influence, you may do so. Again, typically in public comments, we have some meeting. We also have this time. So if you were here to talk about something, I do not have anybody that signed up for this this section of public comments. But anyone that wishes to address the council, they may do so. If not, also for just for the record, since our neighbors across the way had a long council meeting that went till 2 a.m. because they didn't state up front, I will restate. Our policy is a 3-minute per person, and we will keep a timer. So if you want to insult me minutes, you're welcome to do so somewhere else, but not in the council meeting. So anyway, just FYI, 3 minutes on our, and I will make sure I make sure that that's stated every time. So we will have probably 3 or 4 public hearings, and I'll bring those up when we come to them. Item 3 on the agenda is adopting the minutes of the April 14th council meeting. The chair would motion to do that.
So moved.
Second.
Motion a second to adopt the minutes for our April 14th meeting. Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes 6-0. Item 4 is planning and zoning, the public hearing and consider a zoning change from actual to planned development retail on approximately 1 acre located at 5209 West US Highway 190 Service Road. Ms. Tina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The applicant has requested that this item phone it to a future item.
All right.
So move. Second.
We have a motion and a second to postpone this to a future meeting, no date specified. Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so we get to postpone the public hearing and the zoning change. Item 5 is hold a public hearing and consider a zoning change from agricultural to planned development retail on approximately 10 located at 2932 FM 1670. Ms. Tina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This property is located off of FM 1670. It is south of the Auction Barn intersection. The applicant property was annexed back in November 2004, and it was zoned ag upon annexation. That is proposing a new manufactured home on the site, and that required a zoning change to be able to get that done. The applicant and family members currently reside at that location. Again, the proposal is to purchase a new manufactured home, approximately 21 square feet, and convert an existing home into a storage. On-site sewage facility is proposed at this location, which will require approval of County Health Department. This is on our future land use map as a commercial retail site. And this is in a Dog Ridge CCN, City of Belton sewer CCN. However, we don't have sewer lines over here. The Planning and Commission heard this item at their last meeting and recommended approval of the zoning change. with the following condition. Development must comply with all applicable standards of the retail zoning district. A new HUD code manufactured home with a permanent foundation is permitted. A future subdivision plat is required for future additions and building. Future commercial uses must provide, not limited to, a site plan with details on proposed use, access, parking requirements, and building plans. Applicant is here. Should you have any questions for her? And I will also be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Ms. Tina. So this being a public hearing, we'll let you guys speak first. So we will close the council deliberations and open the floor. If anyone wishes to speak in favor or against this item, this is your time to take your 3 minutes.
Go.
Ready on your second? Go.
Laura LeBlanc, 2632 FM 1670 Belton. I am currently residing with my parents on one side of that circle driveway you saw there. The new home is on the other side. It is one single plot of land, the 9.9 whatever acres. But when we purchased it, it already had 2 separate street addresses. I don't know how that happened, but my mother and father are going to stay in their residence, and I'm moving into a new manufactured home on the other side. The one we are turning into storage was the one I used to reside in, a single wide manufactured home, but it's being used as storage, my late son's belongings. And every time I try to get through that, it hasn't happened yet. So I would ask that y'all allow that to remain for storage. I promise we're not trying to build a FEMA city or anything. It's just, I need it for the storage of his furniture and belongings.
Yeah, sorry for your loss. I know it's a hard thing to process, and
Thank you.
time will heal.
So.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in favor or against this agenda item? There being none, we will close the floor and reconvene to discuss this. Any comments or questions for Tina? Or the chair would entertain a motion.
A motion to approve agenda presented.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda item. Any comments or questions before we vote? The only question, and I think it all got answered, is since it was already multiple homes, now that we're doing the plan development, we don't require platting unless it's done again. And then we'll have to plat and divide it.
Correct. There is a stipulation that allows for one main home after annexation to be installed. So that's what it's being applied. So any future additions will require the subdivision plat requirement.
That was all right. Any others? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Passes 6-0. All right. Item 6, consider amending a plat. The Avenue R subdivision, amending plat number 1 comprising 0.7979 acres located at the north side of East Avenue R between Wall Street and Miller Street. Tina.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a follow-up for our zoning case heard late last year for the Avenue R subdivision. This property is located on the east side of 35, and it is south of FM 436 or Holland Road. The applicant is proposing 8 lots, or is re-amending the plat for the 8 lots that's currently there. The major amendments are the location of the setbacks. With our previous approval, we allowed a 15-foot front yard setback, 15-foot rear yard setback, actually 20, and a 5-foot side yard setback for this area. The area in blue is a shared access that's shared between the front property and the rear property. It's a 20-foot shared access easement for the properties. Another amendment that is at the back of the property, at the rear lots, there is a 15-foot utility easement that the city needed for sewer lines that are currently existing there. Another minor addition was the relocation of another easement that's located between the front and the rear yard. It's car constructed in there, and the applicant was able to relocate the utility easement to a more accurate location. The utilities companies have looked at this and have approved that. So the zoning, this is a planned development. Water and sewer provided by the city. Streets is off of an existing Avenue R. No improvements are required, and parkland dedication fees have been paid for this plat. Staff is recommending approval. This is actually done as an administrative that allows for city staff to approve it. Does not require planning and zoning commission, but it's being brought back to you because at your request for the zoning change.
All right, thank you, Tina. All right, there being no public hearing, anybody have any comments or questions, or the chair would entertain a motion on this plat? I'm sorry, this is not a public hearing. I'm sorry. Yeah, this is just an administrative plat. Yes, apologies.
I'll make a motion to present. I know this was one, or to approve, not present, approve as presented. So this is one that we asked for. I'm glad to see it's finally getting behind us on this one.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the plat as presented. Any other comments or questions before we vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes unanimously. So we're
Thank
now
you.
platted, so y'all are in the clear. All right, item 7 is hold a public hearing, again, 3 minutes. Public hearing and consider ordinance amending chapter 11, article 9 of the Code of Ordinances related to short-term rentals. Mr. Bob.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that very much. Back in January, we brought some items to you relating to the enforcement of short-term rentals, as well as some ideas in terms of the administration. After that meeting, we received some direction also for the short-term rental committee to get together to talk about some of the other items that we're going to discuss here. Councilman O'Banion, Councilman Booker, and Councilman Covington were on that committee along with some other city staff, so we were able to discuss those items. And we have forwarded these particular recommendations to you. The first one is to allow up to 2 STR units per lot and up to 10% of the units, whichever is greater, mostly with duplex and multifamily. To eliminate the difference between owner and non-owner occupied STRs, to reduce the distance between STRs from 500 to 100 feet, and to eliminate distance requirements in the imagined Belton zone, except for the neighborhood zone as well in that area. So just to touch on these things, and members of the committee, if y'all have any insights or comments, feel free to jump in. A particular issue, a multifamily duplex is not addressed by the ordinance, so we asked the committee to consider this. After looking at some other towns, we figured out that in some other areas, they would allow up to 2 units per lot or 10% of the units, whichever is greater. And then as part of the approval process, the property owner has to weigh in on that. And so just kind of an example of that is y'all might remember the cases on Spark Street where the one on the south was able to get a variance from the council, so there's a duplex on either side. So in this particular case, we've got two STRs on that one duplex, and if the distance requirements either 500, the others would not be eligible for STRs. Do y'all have any comments to add to that, or members of the committee?
What's the average lot size, would you say?
Throughout the city?
Yeah.
Oh, I would
Say
60, 70
You said
or so.
100 feet, is that every other house or is that every?
I think so. We've got an exhibit in there, kind of give you an idea what it may look like. So that's okay. We'll just kind of park it for a minute. The non-owner STRs versus the owner STRs. Now we're suggesting that we eliminate the distinction between the two, because at first we thought that there was, if we had an owner occupied STR, they might be on site when somebody rents the place. There's a certain amount of supervision to the whole situation. In the vast majority of cases, that's not the case. And so there's really no reason for that distinction to exist. So anyway, we're coming up on that. Any thoughts, things to add or anything like that? I want to give you the opportunity to speak because I don't want to take it from here. Anyway, so the next one is the 500 foot down to the 100 foot. And that essentially is, kind of based on our experience to some extent, that they're, because we originally started out with the non-clustering aspect in the neighborhoods and things like that. And so we really haven't experienced a lot that would give some concern about the separations. And so the suggestion is reduce it to 100 feet. Do y'all have any other thoughts about that?
So
terms of this
basically,
particular item.
possibly every other house, is it in the measurement line to
Property line to property line, yes, sir. So I have an example here. This is the 500-foot radius. We picked one up on 14th Street. And so you see about 20 lots in that radius. If we want to consider that 100-foot, then it drops down to about 8-10 lots or so. So we have that area, but you can logically see that there will be more on that street.
I guess my biggest concern with reduction to the 100-foot radius is of parking. And from what I've seen or experienced, most of if you're doing a short-term rental, everybody's driving their own car to a place.
Sure.
And that's where I think we had some problems or issues, maybe on Summit or Estate, somewhere in that area with
You're right.
parking all up and down the street. I kind of like the 500-foot rule because you could basically eliminate a street full of short-term rentals and just avoid a lot of issues or difficulties. I'm
Understand.
concerned about reducing that.
Yes, sir. Again, I don't want to steal y'all's thunder. If you have any input on this, feel free to chime in. I'm happy to take your input. If not, we'll move along. The other recommendation was to eliminate the distances, between the STRs and the imagined Belton zone, with the exception of the neighborhood zone. And of course, I put 100 feet in there. You know, if you were to think, well, what's the distance in the neighborhood zone? If you were to change it to 100 feet, then that would be the distance. If it remains at 500, then of course we stay at 500. So just to give you an idea what that, the imagined Belton, well, not an idea, y'all know where the imagined Belton zone is. It's along 14 up Main Street. The yellowish, greenish color there, that's the neighborhood zone. So those would be excluded from the recommendation. And so, as we mentioned, the recommendation is to allow up to 2 per lot or a maximum of 10%, whichever is greater. Eliminate the distinction between the owner, non-owner occupied. Change the distance from 500 to 100, and to eliminate the distance requirements in the imagined Belton zone, of course, not including the neighborhood zone. So those are our thoughts. And as you mentioned earlier, Mayor, this is a public hearing, so it's okay with you. I'll step back and let that happen.
Yep, that sounds good. Yeah, I do have one that signed up, but we don't have to limit it to one. If somebody else wants to speak about this, they can do so as well. So we will close our deliberations and open the floor. Public comments, again, 3 minutes. We will keep the time and let you keep the time too. So the first one I have is Dominica. So name and address for the record, and then your 3 minutes starts.
Okay, I'm too short. Dominica Garza, 3012 Mystic Mountain Lane, Belton, Texas. And I have my remarks timed at exactly 3 minutes, so we'll see how we do. So good evening, Mayor and Council members. I'm here to oppose the recommendation to reduce the STR separation from 500 feet to 100 feet and to eliminate it in the imagined Belton zones. Quite honestly, this feels like deja vu. I understood this issue had already been in August 2025, City recommended removing the separation requirement, and Council chose not to. There were clear concerns about overconcentration and the impact on neighborhoods and public safety. The direction was to keep the 500-foot separation. Then it came back up in January, and now it's back up again tonight. At some point, it feels like a pattern trying to change a decision that has already been made. The 500-foot separation was not arbitrary. It was put into place to prevent clustering and reduce impacts like noise, parking, congestion, trash, and safety concerns. Reducing that to 500 feet does not solve a problem. It removes the protection that residents currently rely on. Eliminating separation in redevelopment areas like the imagined Belton zones is even more concerning. Those are areas where we should maintain protections. Redevelopment areas should set the standard for thoughtful planning, not become testing grounds for reduced protections. There's also no clear justification for this change. Since the ordinance was adopted 3 years ago, there have only been 3 variances granted. That suggests the system is working, not that it needs overhaul. So the question is this: why are we changing it? The only rationale I'm hearing is enforcement and administrative convenience. So am I to understand that creating a manageable policy takes higher priority than protecting residents, property owners, and neighborhoods? The solution is enforcement, not rewriting the ordinance to make it easier to manage. When you weaken the standard, the impact does not go away. It shifts the burden to residents. I can speak to that directly. Next to me, there are 3 STRs operating side by side. The result has been ongoing noise issues, parking problems, and even criminal activity. That is what happens when clustering is allowed. So I'm asking you to stay consistent with your prior direction. Keep the 500-foot separation. Do not reduce it to 100 feet. Do not eliminate it in Imagine Belton zones, and focus on enforcing the ordinance you already adopted. You established the standard for a reason. Please stand by it and enforce it. Don't weaken it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Does anyone else to speak in favor or in opposition to this? There being no one else from the floor, we will close the public hearing and reopen deliberations for the council. Comments, questions, or motions?
I kind of stand the 500 foot. I think, especially residing in the older established neighborhood, we do have some rentals next to us. Of course, they're not short term, but the additional cars, and lack of parking and whatnot. It would be difficult if we had a couple of short term rentals next door or every other door down our street. And the parking, I think would be really, really difficult to deal with. I'm for them, but I just think there needs to be some space. Personally.
Ms. Garza, thank you for the email that you sent previously and for your clear and concise comments and for your personal experience. I agree with John that it doesn't seem to be broke. If we've only had 3 times that we've had to consider it and all the time we've had it in place, it seems to be, but I haven't been part of the group, so I'm gonna let you guys comment on that, please.
I was part of the group. I would say that I do feel like the 500-foot spacing that was originally adopted by the council before I was on council was arbitrary. I think that it was just a number plucked out of the air. I think that the 100-foot spacing gives you some space for street parking. I think that there's also other ordinances in place that protect the neighbors. We've got noise ordinances. We've got, one of the examples was a house where a bunch of teenagers threw a party and got drunk and tore up the house. And turns out we've got a lot of teenagers drinking and tearing up a house. So I think we've got some other things in place that we can enforce without adding the burden to short-term rental owners. We have approved 3 variances. I think we've had variances requested. So we've approved 100% of the variances that have been requested from us. I think that you tiptoe into property rights issues whenever you limit these things more than necessary. And so I think the recommendations that came from the short-term rental committee are good.
John, you think 100 feet is enough? I mean, it does keep that from happening when you're and what Ms. Garza mentioned.
Well, in my neighborhood, that'd be every other house.
Right.
And I think that's a little excessive. I don't think that 500 feet was arbitrary. I thought we had looked at other policies from other cities and that kind of followed along those guidelines. And I don't know where the variances downtown, I believe, and not neighborhoods.
Those were all in neighborhoods.
The variances?
Yes, sir.
And so they were within 500 feet of each other was the variance?
Yes.
Well, they're within 100 feet of each other.
No, they were not.
So 100 feet would have solved all 3 of them.
No.
Well, I don't know about, it's kind of specific to those cases, but, well, if you had a policy that was 100 feet, yeah, it would solve those problems. Yes, absolutely. I see what you're saying.
This one's tough for me because I always go back to, is it fair for everyone involved? And especially when it comes to property rights. What you set the number at 100, 500 or 1,000. What that makes it is to where the owner of a property can buy a permit and they automatically make it to where the property rights of their neighbor are affected because now they cannot do a short-term rental versus the person who does. I don't think that's fair. So in my mind, it should either all or nothing thing. Either you say everyone's allowed to do a short-term rental in a neighborhood, or you say They're not. But I'm just not for a 500,000. I would rather see something tied to the type of zoning or to, as you were saying, the actual, imagine Belton, the different zones. But I'll be honest with you, if you set it at 500, I'm gonna go buy a permit and make sure that none of the people around me do a short-term rental. Because I don't want them next to
What
me.
if it's 100?
I'm gonna buy a 100-foot one because I don't want them next to me.
That's
So-
pretty loudly.
Yeah. And so I would rather us say, yes, you can do it in the, in the downtown, which I consider commercial areas. Those are commercial zones. But I would say we eliminate it for, single family zoning. Or where everyone can. I think those are the two options. I just don't think it's fair to not give the same property rights to each person.
I have a similar struggle. Mine revolves more around what the purpose is. I mean, I understand it. It's property rights. But with the data we have that 99.9% of them are not inhabited by the owner, to me, it's a commercial entity. I don't know that the law supports or doesn't support me in that realm yet. Much like Uber drivers were independent contractors, but now they're employees and all these things that legislature hasn't decided to this point. And so, I mean, there's a lot of struggles, property rights being one of them, but also if I were to liken the 500 feet to retail, would I feel comfortable saying retail couldn't go on one lot and not the next one? I would not, because free market should dictate what businesses work and what don't. So that's the toss up for me, being on this committee. I personally, though, to Domenica's point, whatever we decide tonight, I would like to not have an STR committee meeting for a while and just stick with it. And so I know we talk about people bringing zoning changes and doing prejudice. So if there's a way to do prejudice on some of this stuff, let's do it, right? But so that's the struggle for me. I don't know where I land on the 500 to 100,000 realm. For me, it's more commercial entity versus residential entity. And what some of those neighbors who now living next to commercial entities, in theory, want to do with them. So there's.
And we don't have laws that govern trash and parking. I mean, there's no way to move a car from in front of my house if they're parked there on the public street. And I just remember the group that we had that was their neighborhood was taken over by one or two short-term rentals. And whether it was a fishing tournament and 5 trucks with 5 boats and 5 to 8 guys in the house, and the difficulty they had turning the corner to get home. Just having several of those 100 feet apart just seems a little excessive to me, and a burden on a neighborhood person.
I'm aware of the complaint on the State Drive with the bass boats and the trailers. And then the issue after Summer Fun Adult, the 90-year-olds tore up the house on 13th. Aside from that, I've not heard of any complaints, violations, anything like that related to STRs. This feels in large part like we've got a solution and we're looking for a problem. I think without justified, it's regulation by the city. That's where I'm at.
I think, when it comes to property rights and community regulations, I think that's where a lot of tension, especially in cities, I don't know, that want a data center versus people who don't want a data center because they want to regulate some property that is not theirs, but they feel impacted by it. STRs is no different, like we're impacted. I will say overregulation leads to no regulation. When Austin basically was banning short-term rentals and Ubers, and then making sure everything went through Austin City Council and Austin City government to make sure every person that's going to be driving a taxi is regulated by the city, it created a tension in Austin because you couldn't get a taxi in Austin. When Uber actually solved the problem, but the state legislature saw it and they saw the annexations being done by cities like Austin. And they basically have taken away the ability of cities to regulate anything because some cities were over-regulating. So I'll say from that perspective, I understand that there's a tension between regulation and too much regulation, and one leads to the other. If there's no regulation, then we tend to overregulate. When there's overregulation, we tend to remove it. When I just look at this seems like it's moderating regulation to be reasonable. Whether it's 100, 250, kind of the 1,000, whatever it is, it seems a reasonable approach because the issues that we've had are not in the density. It has to do really with one or two, not 25 of them at a time. So I'm kind of in the I could vote either way, honestly. It doesn't affect my life, other than at a council meeting, but my own personal life, I'm not really affected. I think the downtown zone, with our vision of what we want, I would expect to have a higher concentration of rentals downtown. So I think that that's reasonable, that you can, hey, if we got 3 buildings downtown that have upstairs, that all 3 of them are, I don't think that affects anybody. I really like the statement that one of you guys made on zoning. I think if you were going to turn your house into a hotel, you should get a residential commercial zoning for rentals, and then get the notices go out to the neighbors, whether you're 100 feet or 1,000 feet, and let the people in the neighborhood voice their opinion. Right now, they just start renting and there's no regulation. And so I think we're still in this bubble of technology out by government, and I think we're having to catch up. And so for those that are here in attendance, we hired a firm to go out and find the short-term rentals because they're supposed to pay for hotel motel tax. So they're taking residential space away from the hotels. They're losing revenue going to that, and then we're losing the revenue of the tax that comes with that. So in doing that, we found a lot of people that are not reporting, they're not self-reporting. And some of these are within 100 feet of each other. And I think one of the things is, in my personal view, I think we should get people to register first, regardless of where they are. And so if it means that we give them you get a get out of jail free card if you register, we're grandfather you into these. But going forward, we need to follow these regulations. We're still trying to catch up. So to Dave's point, I think we're trying to catch up. We don't have enough data to really know which regulations are bad. So that's a lot of stuff to just talk around the regulation process. But as far as I'm concerned, I like the 2 or 10% that solves the issue with the duplexes. I like the elimination of non-owner versus owner occupied, because most owner occupied, they're in Colorado and people are renting, they're not here. I like the eliminating the distance requirement in the Imagine Belton zones, that downtown area. I like that. I'm coin toss on number 3. That's my.
In the words of John Messer, I'll say one more thing and then I'll shut up. This is not an issue for me where I'm, like a dog with a bone that I'm not going to let it go. I'm just expressing my thoughts on the issue. Vote it up or vote it down. I'm not going to lose any sleep tonight. I think that this whole conversation is about making progress. We started several years ago with no ordinance about this, and we came up with one, and I think this is just about refining it and making it better. In the interest of progress, John, would you feel better if it was, instead of 100 feet, if it was 200 feet? I mean, could you get on board with something like that?
To be honest, I really like the 500.
Okay.
And part of that is because I'm in an area that doesn't have an HOA. We don't have any help or support, and it's just an established neighborhood. And so I just worry that as we go through transition, some folks may say, hey, that's a great short-term rental. We can come go to football games and do Mary Hardin Baylor stuff and go downtown. And I just worry about that. We like neighbors and owners and honestly families with kids, and don't want to have to fight all that. And that's all a lot personal, but I like a neighborhood. And our little town has tried to communicate, appease the need for these. And it seems like they fit a lot better downtown. we're trying to still track them down, in neighborhoods and get them to pay the fees. I worry about, an area being overrun with short-term rentals and it impacting the regular folks living there.
What's our enforcement? Let's say we have the people that have not registered with the city, they're not submitting their taxes to the city. They're still renting on whatever the app that they signed up. Okay, let's say they're a frequent offender. What do we do?
I mean, in terms of, like, like parking and trash and things like that.
Let's say
it's just
somebody
not-
offended, they're an offender. They're doing something, whatever our ordinance is,
Okay.
they're not following the ordinance.
Right,
What do we
right,
do?
They're operating an Airbnb without a permit.
That's correct.
right,
Second floor.
exactly.
Or they're within 100 feet of somebody else and they want to register.
Not paying
But then we say, oh, well, you can't register because somebody's already registered, so you can't, and so they continue to do it.
Yeah, exactly. The case where somebody's within 100 feet, we're going to encourage them to register, but then we'd have to come to the council and ask you to give them that variance. And then we can start, getting in the system and having them pay their taxes and things like that. They're still going to pay their taxes because we know that, possibly they were there for a couple of years prior to.
Have we taken anybody to court yet?
No, sir.
Have we threatened to take anybody to court yet?
I think our last letter was pretty firm, but, we're doing this compassionate compliance aspect. So, we're people plenty of latitude to make the decision to come into the system. So, but we're getting close.
Mayor,
We're getting close.
the short answer is, yes, we've sent out letters. The next step, would then be, and we've identified those, locations that are not registered, or permitted. And then, so the next step would be taking those, filing a citation and taking those, folks to court.
Okay. I think the key is we have to enforce our regulations for them to mean anything, or
Yeah.
our debate really means nothing because people would register and do that online.
Yep.
All right, any other comments or questions?
I'm just wondering have y'all seen or anyone have any ideas of, I'm kind of similar, I'm on board with 1, 2, and 4, but number 3, I just really don't like it from the fact of my neighbor affects my property rights. Have you seen people do, or cities have a percent where you say only 1% of a neighborhood can be short-term rentals?
We haven't seen anything like that in the research that we've done. Now, we haven't surveyed everybody, but we're typically seeing a distance like 500 feet, 100 feet, 1,000 feet, that kind of thing. The percentages are mostly on the multifamily side of things. So that doesn't help you any, but that's kind of where we're at on the research.
Would there be a way to enforce, if you did say, in theory, only 10% of a block can be a short-term rental? Is there a way to monitor that and enforce that?
We can find a way to do this.
Um,
And then you're gonna have to draw lines throughout the city to say this is
Zone
where
one,
one
zone
neighborhood
two.
starts and then.
Well, I would just do by block,
Yeah.
whatever the block.
That's a lot more work than the 500 feet, but if that's where we land, that's where we go.
Truly feel that my neighbors walked the streets and talked to everybody and said, hey, we have this ordinance change. And are you good with 100 feet versus 500 feet from your property for a rental? I think the consensus was, 500 feet, please. I'd rather not have those on either side of me. That's difficult for me in the middle. Just
I'm gonna go ahead and throw a wrench here. I'm gonna make a motion.
Hey, before you do that, us up into 4 motions.
Yeah,
Well-
you make any, as long as it's,
I was gonna-
regarding this ordinance, you can make a motion, read whatever you want.
1, 2, and 4, great.
I think I'll make a motion to. My motion specifically is gonna involve recommendations 1, 2, and 4. Make a motion to approve recommendations 1, 2, and 4.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, to amend chapter 11, article 9 of the code of ordinances related to short-term rentals for items 1, 2, and 4 being allowing up to 2 STRs per lot or 10%, whichever is greater, eliminate the distinction between non-owner and owner occupied STRs, and eliminate the distance requirements in the imagined Belton zones. Any comments or questions before we vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, passes 6-0. That means whatever it said, if it said 500 in there, we did not amend it, so that's
Good job.
maintained. Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you, guys. Civil discourse.
You want to do
Appreciate
another one?
Hey, could I make a motion to approve number 3 now?
Yeah.
Just address that separately?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I make a motion to approve number 3.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Motion dies for lack of a second.
All right. System.
Yeah.
System.
Yeah, that's good.
Thanks for your effort to
Yeah,
the community, to the
absolutely.
group.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. All right, item 8 is consider a petition to recognize the Belton Police Officers Association as the sole and exclusive bargaining agent for all the eligible employees of the police department and meet and confer negotiations with the city of Belton. It looks like we do have a handful of those employees and in the house tonight, so welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. On the 9th of April, received a petition asking to recognize the Belton Police Officers Association as the sole bargaining agent for meet and confer with eligible police department employees. We reviewed their petition. We reviewed the membership list as well as eligible employees HR data to make sure that each one that was eligible, they had 100% support. They have to have 50% plus one be recognized. So there are 3 steps that the council can take. One is to grant them recognition. Another is to defer recognition of the association and order an election of the municipality on whether or not the city of Belton may meet and confer with the Belton Police Officers Association, or they can defer recognition of the association and order a certification election within the association. Staff is recommending that the council go ahead and recognize Belton Police Officers Association as the sole bargaining unit for the Belton Police Department. As you've said before, there are representatives here, and I believe that they have a statement they would like to make.
All right, any questions from the council? All right. All right, if you have a statement, well, it doesn't say public hearing, but since you guys are presenting the petition, I think that probably is fair to do that. Name and address for the record and.
Richard
state away.
Spurgeon, 19 Ridgewood. Mayor, members of the council, we thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Richard Spurgeon. By day, I'm a police captain. By night, I serve as the inaugural president of the Belton Police Officers Association. This follows the established process under Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 142. The association, as she already said, the association submitted its petition on April 9th. The city conducted full verification, and the results speak for themselves. That level of consensus is not common in this crowded political landscape. It reflects a unified police department that is asking for one thing: a clear, structured, and professional way to communicate with the city on matters that directly impact our ability to serve. Recognition is that first step in that process. It does not obligate the city to any contract terms, and it does not limit the authority of this council. Any meet and confer agreement will have to come back to you for your full consideration. What recognition does is provide a framework, one that promotes transparency, consistency, and accountability on both sides. It allows the city and its police officers to engage in good faith discussions about wages, benefits, working conditions, and policies in a way that is organized and productive. This is about building a stronger department. It is about improving communication, supporting retention and recruitment, and ensuring that the officers serving this community have a professional voice in the process, all while maintaining the city in oversight. City has reviewed this petition, verified its validity, and recommended approval. We're simply asking you to adopt this recommendation and formally recognize the Belton Police Officers Association to represent these men and women in building a brighter future for the city department. On behalf of our members, I want to thank you for your time, your consideration, and your continued support for the men and women of the Belton Police Department. We respectfully ask for your approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. All right. Chair would entertain a motion.
I moved grant recognition to the Belton Police Officer Association.
Second.
A motion second to grant recognition based on the petition and request. Any comments or questions before we vote? I will say this, if you watch the 60 Minutes interview of former senator and former president of the University of Florida, Dr. Sass, or Mr. Sass, depending on how you do it. Go watch that. It's an individual, he's 54 years old. He I think his economics degree from Harvard, followed by a PhD in, I think, history from Yale. He served 7 years in the Senate before he retired from the Senate to take over as the president of the University of Florida. He was diagnosed in December with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And he talked about what is wrong with this country. And he talks about civil discourse and that reasonable people can come in and have a conversation and sometimes walk away and say, you know what? I think I changed my mind. And he talks about his life and his life in public service. And the bold question is everything that's going on in Washington, is that what's wrong with our country? And he says, I think that what's going on in Washington and the administration is a reflection of what's happening in our neighborhoods. It's not the other way around. And I think being able to come and discuss and have discourse and not agree in a community like Belton of 25-ish thousand or so, it's a great place to live. It's a great place to serve. We don't always see eye to eye, but we're still our neighbors. And so I would, if you've not watched it, watch it. Watch the extended one. It's 40 minutes. It's worth every minute. It will make you a believer in humanity. So again, I just wanted to say that in this, you know, it bothers me. I think anytime that anybody signs a petition, again, people, our neighbors across the way are dealing with a petition on a recall because they didn't get a vote they like. I think that's a breakdown in discourse. But I think in this petition, it's the way the process works, and it is the process. So again, I appreciate guys and gals that are here. I appreciate what you guys stand for. We are your partners. And we're partners with citizens. We are hired and fired by election every 2 years. And so, or 3 years now, 3 years. I've been there too long. So anyway, any other comments or questions?
I just want to say, I hope everybody on the police force realized we're volunteers, and we volunteer because we love our city. We love the community. We love police and fire. And police is a big of why our little bitty community of 25,000 is successful. And so I feel like we've always been in your corner. Hopefully you don't see us as adversarial. And we truly appreciate you guys. And so we'll go into this with an open mind. It's getting close to budget time, so the timing is probably not the best, but we're all ears and willing to listen. And I wish there was a different way we could have gotten together other than this, but we're committed. You know, we were committed to fire, and we'll be committed to you. And just know that we're limited by budget constraints. And a penny on our tax roll equates to
About 240,000.
yeah, 240,000. And we have to the taxpayer and say, here's your tax rate on your appraised property. And we hope you see the value in this. And we've been very, very frugal, efficient, and conscious of the taxpayers' role in this and trying to appease fire, police, and all the employees of the city. And I think we've done an amazing job over the last few years in terms of benefits, comp, and trying to honestly keep everybody focused on the same thing, and that's taking care of the citizens. So just wanted to say that.
All right. Motion, and we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. That concludes our meeting. We stand adjourned at 6:18 p.m. 19.
Way to go.